Aging is an inevitable journey, filled with crossroads that shape our final chapters with shades of serenity or deep regret. For the queer individual who has spent decades carving out an identity against the prevailing currents of society, old age presents a unique dilemma: the allure of returning to the family fold by choosing to live close to one's children. But is this the path to true inner peace, or is it subtly a surrender that unravels years of hard-won authenticity? Stoicism, that ancient philosophy that teaches us to distinguish between what we can and cannot control, provides a valuable lens for examining this question. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that the happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts, and it is precisely in the clarity of these final decisions that the difference between a dignified old age and a silent resignation that erases hard-earned freedom lies. When a queer person, after a lifetime of fighting for recognition and personal space, gives up their autonomy to be closer to their family, they often underestimate the subtle power dynamics that re-emerge, the unspoken expectations, and the microaggressions that, little by little, can erode that much-coveted inner peace. The Stoic perspective understands that true tranquility is not found in external validation, not even in familial acceptance, but in the coherence between one's choices and fundamental values. The courage to face physical solitude, if it means preserving the integrity of the spirit, may paradoxically be the most generous act a queer person can offer themselves in their later years. For as Epictetus warns us, it is not events that disturb us, but our interpretations of them. What may initially seem like a wise decision, family proximity, support in old age, time with grandchildren, often turns into a silent exercise in self-denial. Deprived of an LGBTQIA+ social circle, without spaces of belonging, and constantly navigating the unspoken expectation of discretion, authenticity can slowly fade, like a tide that day by day erodes the coastline unnoticed. This reality invites a deeper reflection on what truly matters in old age. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, taught that virtue, living in accordance with reason and nature, is the only true good. For the queer person, living in accordance with their nature means honoring their identity, even when it defies social or familial expectations. The physical closeness to one's children, though seemingly desirable, may ultimately put this fundamental commitment to oneself at risk. A more stoically aligned alternative would be to maintain a healthy geographic distance from one's children, visiting them on special occasions but preserving one's own space. Keeping a home in a community where meaningful relationships have been built, participating in support groups and activism, and cultivating a routine that honors one's journey is crucial. When visiting children and grandchildren, it should be on one's own terms, as a conscious choice rather than out of necessity or submission. This autonomy brings a quality to family relationships that forced proximity could never achieve. Seneca, one of the most pragmatic Stoic philosophers, reminds us that it is not how long you live, but how well you live, that matters. Queer individuals have often faced difficult choices throughout their lives, between authenticity and acceptance, between personal truth and social conventions. Old age should not represent a surrender of these hard-fought battles, but rather a dignified continuation of a life of courage and self-determination. Consider the specific challenges that queer people face in old age when choosing to live near their children. The first is community isolation. After decades of building meaningful connections within the LGBTQIA+ community, relocating to places where these connections are scarce can result in a profound sense of loneliness and displacement. Epictetus would teach us to distinguish between solitude and isolation. The former can be a productive state of autonomy, while the latter is a painful deprivation. The second challenge is identity invisibility. Within family contexts, especially across generations, fundamental aspects of queer identity are often tacitly suppressed in the name of superficial harmony. Being referred to as the kid's grandmother or the family's grandfather may seem affectionate, but these labels can inadvertently eclipse essential dimensions of a person's being. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, invites us to ask, "What is the proper use of what has been given to me?" Stoic wisdom suggests that our final years should be dedicated not only to contemplation, but to the highest expression of our individuality. For the queer person, this may mean preserving spaces where their identity not only survives but flourishes. However, it is essential to acknowledge that each situation is unique. Some families foster genuinely inclusive environments where the queer person finds not just superficial acceptance, but authentic celebration. Musonius Rufus, another key Stoic philosopher, emphasized that both men and women possess equal capacity for virtue, a radically egalitarian vision for his time. This same progressive spirit exists in some contemporary families, creating spaces where physical proximity does not demand the sacrifice of authenticity. The central question, then, is not whether we should live near our children in old age, but how we can make this decision from a place of self-determination rather than fear. Fear of loneliness, abandonment, or social judgment often influences our choices more than we would like to admit. Stoicism invites us to examine these fears, to distinguish between what is truly within our control and what is not. Remember, your queer identity is not something you leave behind as you age. It is an integral part of the wisdom you have cultivated, the battles you have fought, the joys you have experienced. Chrysippus of Soli, one of the most prolific Stoic writers, argued that virtue consists of living in accordance with the experience of natural events. Your experience as a queer person is precisely that: natural, valid, and worthy of honor, especially in your golden years. Consider creating an inner council before deciding to relocate closer to your children. Ask yourself, will this move allow me to maintain meaningful connections with the LGBTQIA+ community? Will my identity be respected and celebrated in this new environment or merely tolerated? Do I have the emotional strength to establish and maintain healthy boundaries, even with those I love deeply? If I require specific care related to my queer identity or medical history, will this environment provide it with dignity? These are not easy questions, but they are essential. Stoicism teaches us that true freedom comes from knowledge of ourselves, our values, and what truly matters in the grand scheme of existence. Some queer individuals find creative solutions to this dilemma. LGBTQIA+ elder co-housing communities are emerging in various parts of the world, offering the best of both worlds, community and independence. Others choose to live at a strategic distance from their children, close enough for regular visits but far enough to preserve their autonomy and authenticity. Palladius of Rhodes, the Stoic philosopher who helped adapt Stoicism to practical Roman life, emphasized the importance of honoring the multiple roles we play in life. You are simultaneously a parent, a friend, a member of the LGBTQIA+ community, and an individual on your own spiritual journey. Wisdom lies in harmonizing these roles without sacrificing any of them completely. Remember, too, that your decision does not have to be permanent or absolute. Flexibility is a Stoic virtue often overlooked. Posidonius of Apamea, who expanded Stoicism to include a broader interest in natural and human phenomena, would remind us that we are part of a cosmos in constant change. Perhaps the question is not, should I live near my children in old age? But what arrangement at this specific moment in my life best serves the authentic expression of my being? For many queer individuals, aging represents an extraordinary triumph, surviving, thriving, and reaching old age in a world that has not always been welcoming. This achievement deserves to be honored with decisions that preserve, rather than diminish, the richness of their journey. Stoic wisdom teaches us that a good life is one lived in harmony with nature and guided by reason. For the queer individual, this means honoring the nature of their identity, even and especially in old age. In the end, the fundamental question remains: what does it mean for me to live with dignity and authenticity at this stage of life? Any decision that honors this question, regardless of what it is, aligns with the highest principles of Stoic philosophy and the respect that your unique journey as a queer person deserves.